John Oliver is in the title, right? So thank you for clicking on this. Now, I'm going to just drop a bunch of facts on you when it comes to Bob Murray versus John Oliver. Since John Oliver isn't allowed to talk anymore about it, his lawyers had silenced him. Bob Murray couldn't do it, but his lawyers was able to get John Oliver to shut the fuck up. So, first, a quote by Donald Trump. Remember how he gives all these suggestive insults? Donald Trump doesn't come right out and say, hey, you better declare a loyalty oath to me. Hey, he doesn't come right out and say that. He just says these things that are borderline. It's actually gangster, right? Because he doesn't say it, but he does say it. It would be nice if you stop the investigation with our friend Michael Flynn. It would be nice if you did that. I hope you will do that. So with Megyn Kelly, he was like, well, blood coming out of her wherever. So it was a suggestive insult. He didn't say she had blood coming out of her eyes and blood coming out of her vagina because she's a woman who has to undergo periods. He didn't come out and straight up say that, but he said blood coming out of her whatever, right? Suggestive. He said the same thing about coal miners. Here's a quote. It's Donald Trump. He says, if I had been the son of a coal miner, I would have left the damn mines, but most people don't have the imagination or whatever to leave their mine. They don't have it. So most people don't have the imagination or whatever. They don't have what? The creative spirit. They don't have the intelligence. He is saying coal miners are stupid. These sons and daughters, the sons are stupid. The sons of coal miners who don't get out of the damn coal mines are stupid, according to Donald Trump. So that's quite interesting. Everybody keeps on, harping on the Democrats. And Hillary did say they were going to shut down coal plants. She absolutely did say that, which was a faux pas, right? But he says the coal miners are dumb and stupid. And then he goes to rallies and he's like, we're going to put your asses to work. We're going to work your ass off. When he hasn't done a damn, he hasn't done any of this shit whatsoever. Now, Bob Murray used to work in the mines. Bob Murray actually got a steel beam to him in the head. He got a scar going from the back of his head down to his neck. And then he was trapped in a mine for quite some time. So coming from the mines, you would think that he would have a better understanding of workers, but he hates the unions. In the Crandall Canyon mine, so 9 people died in his Crandall Canyon mine. And then after 9 people had died, John Huntsman was talking really mean to him, so he cut 170 coal jobs off. So he cares about coal workers? Bob Murray does? No, he doesn't. As soon as he had a political dispute in Utah, he laid 170 people off after the Crandall Canyon mine. So the Crandall Canyon mine happens, 9 people had died. He should have said, sorry, we fucked up. We're going to make sure that, we do the safety things as best as we can because we don't want this shit to happen anymore. But instead of doing that, he goes, it wasn't my fault. I didn't do nothing. Why are you picking on me? Fine, if you're going to pick on me, I'm going to cut 170 Utah jobs. So he cut 170 Utah jobs. There was one woman who ran a McDonald's in Price. She said that Bob Murray closed another mine several years earlier, before the Crandall Canyon mine disaster of 2007 in Utah. So he had closed another mine several years earlier, and he laid off 200 workers right before Christmas. Right before Christmas. And then this was in a Fox News report. Okay? The Fox News report also says that a week after the Crandall Canyon mine, a retired inspector called Blake Hanna, who used to oversee the Crandall Canyon mine, said that there were several warning signs, including reports from miners of weakening support structures. They all had been ignored. In my opinion, according to Blake Hanna, there were bad mining practices. So there were several warning signs, including the workers themselves who are digging deep into this mountain, who's only leaving these columns of coal and rock to keep up the entire, area that they're digging underneath. The retreat method, which they definitely were using the retreat method. Since he's a businessman, it would be stupid for him not to use it. It's just that it's more dangerous and there's more risk, so therefore you need more safety precautions. So, does that sound like a good man to you? He lays 200 workers off right before Christmas. He laid 170 workers off in Utah because of the governor there after 9 people had died of the Crandall Canyon mine. He paid off every single one of the 9 families' estates. He paid the $1 million fine from the government. So he paid millions of dollars out to this and still says he did nothing wrong. The settlement had said that he admits that he was responsible for some of the elements of the thing that had happened. So he didn't come right out and say that he was directly responsible, but it's his fucking company. It's his mountain. So when you go to work and you go to his company, his mountain, he says, get down there and start doing your, start chipping away, start getting the diggers to keep on digging. And you're like, well, the structures, they're very weak. They're very weak structures. I feel very unsafe. The deeper I go into that mine, the farther and farther away from reality I see. And they seem like weak structures. I don't think it's structurally sound or intact. And we're going to fucking die. And then Bob Murray says, shut the fuck up. Do your damn job. And it's like, well, shit, I'm making, a whole $11 an hour. $11 an hour. I might as well risk my life for this. And then it wound up killing 9 people. So he didn't listen to his workers. He didn't listen to his miners. He lays off co-workers, 200 of them right before Christmas. He lays 170 workers off because of the political fallout from the Crandall Canyon mine, of which he was responsible for. The buck stops with Bob Murray, but he pretends that he doesn't have to be held accountable for anything that he does, including the death of his own workers. So the frustration for the people of Huntington and Price was that in spite of the repeated violations, nothing was ever done. So Bob Murray, the owner of the mine, stated that he filed paperwork with federal regulators to permanently close and seal the Crandall Canyon mine. And then he says this. So Bob Murray said, had I known that this evil mountain, this alive mountain, would do what it did, I would have never sent the miners in there. I'll never go near that mountain again. That evil mountain, probably put by evil Obama. This was 2007, so this was before Obama was elected. But he blamed the evil mountain. So he's still saying that it's the earthquake. But here's something interesting that he had said too. So even though he blamed it on the earthquake, when that report at Fox News came out, he came out and said no one knows for sure what caused the tragic collapse at the Crandall Canyon mine. We were initially informed on the first day that it was an earthquake by the University of Utah, and they even cited the epicenter 1 mile from the mining. So there's 2 important disclosures there. So we were initially informed on the first day that it was an earthquake by the University of Utah, but no one knows for certain what caused the tragic collapse at Crandall Canyon mine. So now he's not saying it definitely was an earthquake. Now he's saying, I'm not for sure if it was an earthquake or not. So his, lack of certainty, he's read all the damn reports and now he's not 100% sure. And then all the scientists that I have read, and I'll talk about this at the end, all the scientists that I had read, they had said that it wasn't an earthquake that caused the mine. It was the mines collapsed that caused the earthquake. And apparently this shit happens all the time in Utah. There's like 17,000 reports over the last 30 years, and 99% of them were all coal collapses that induced the earthquake. So what came first, the earthquake or the mine collapse? And the seismologists in Utah are saying that the collapse happened first and then the earthquake happened. So he said that he didn't know for certain what caused the tragic collapse at Crandall Canyon mine. So he's leaving open the possibility that it was the mine collapse that caused the earthquake. He's not saying it was 100% the earthquake, even though he called the mountain an evil mountain. That damn mountain is evil. It's evil. It's got the demons. I know it's got the demons. Or maybe it was just a fucking mountain and you dug really fucking far deep into it and wasn't safe. The safety regulations and safety violations eventually killed your damn employees, Bob. That's what happened. So, and then the other thing is, he said they even cited the epicenter as being 1 mile from the mining. So they said the epicenter of the earthquake wasn't even at the mountain, according to Bob Murray. So that was interesting. I was kind of like, wait a second. If the epicenter was a mile away, how would the collapse cause? Now, in the coal industry, they call these a bounce. This is a coal mine bounce, a coal mine bump. And apparently this shit happens all the time. So the vernacular inside the industry is like, oh, it's just a bounce, right? They cause an earthquake, and I can see that. So you're around a mountain that collapses, and it's shaking everything and everybody. So, but then you get past it, right? It lasts for 10 seconds or so. And then it was a bounce. Oh, we just had a little bump. We had a little bump there. We had a little bounce. You just caused a fucking earthquake. Yeah, we did, but it's a bounce. We call it a bounce, you know. It makes it a cute little, makes it seem like it's a cute little, oh, look, we're going to go bouncing. You want to go for bouncing? So he filed for defamation, false and light invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. He intentionally hurt my feelings. He said, I'm going to hurt his feelings, and then he did. He's so mean. He is so mean. So he claimed no responsibility immediately after. He claimed no responsibility after he got fined, after he paid off all the people. If you talk to him today, he would still fucking deny this shit. So this must have traumatized the shit out of him. I haven't heard about any other accidents or anything else that he's done. You know, he said he was in business for 20 years, and then that thing, 9 people died in 2007, and here it is 10 years later. So, but he hasn't even said that he was sorry for the one mistake, you know, that we know about. And he definitely was doing retreat mining. He denied that whatsoever. So, you know, that's 100%. He was retreat mining. He was digging deep into the fucking mountainside so he can extract 75% of more coal, which is a lot more coal. So, greater the risk, the greater the reward. And he definitely was doing retreat mining, but he said that he wasn't. And 25% of all coal mining deaths happen because of retreat mining. So, retreat mining increases the likelihood of accidents and death happening, but it also pulls, in fact, the greater amount of coal, you increase it by 75%, right? Only 25% have died, but you increase the output of 75%. So it just seems by the numbers that you would engage in it, but you would be more careful with the safety. You would make sure that, you know, the fact that it's more dangerous, just you would understand that it's more dangerous. Okay, so why coal is dying? Coal is dying because it's in the midst of an irreversible decline. The business is going out. It's going down. Okay, and that's not, I'm not happy about that. Before, coal used to provide 50% of electricity in the U.S., but now it provides 30%. I think that is the best thing. If we could get totally on solar power, wind power, get Sweden's electric to trash model, have a battery-based system instead of being on the grid, I think that would be a lot better. So the competition from renewable energy, competition from natural gas, is a major factor in killing U.S. coal. And it's not the regulations. So Bob Murray even admits that those jobs aren't coming back. The jobs that have been lost by coal aren't coming back. So if Bob Murray admits that those jobs aren't coming back, then he knows that it wasn't all about Obama. Whenever he criticizes Obama, he just has like a visceral hatred. Like, he doesn't just hate Obama because, you know, he's regulating his industry, but it's like a hatred that comes from your bone, right? Oh, this damned Obama. Look at this damned Obama. So I think it's white supremacist. I think he is tapping into a racist element against Obama, like a lot of people did. You know, even with the Clintons, people attacked them for being liberal when they were very much right-wing. So the coal is dying. Coal is dying. It's not by the regulations. So John Oliver was sitting there kind of pointing this out, that the competition from natural gas and renewables is one reason why coal is going out. Even Bob Murray himself admits that those jobs aren't coming back. So apparently it wasn't just the regulations, right? It's the industry itself. And he also pointed out that the Kentucky Coal Museum has solar panels on its rooftop, which is amazing. You know, that's incredible. That's smart. That's actually indicative of where the industry should go. The coal and oil industries should get into the renewable industries. They should set it up to where, you know, for the future generations, that they don't have to use these dirty. Coal is dirty. Coal produces a lot of sulfur. And so, yeah, they put them in a position where that's a good thing. Installing solar panels on the roof of the Kentucky Coal Museum, I mean, all this sunlight is free, so how much sunlight do we waste just so we can pay the coal fucking companies? Then you also have two prevalent mining states, West Virginia and Kentucky, who rank near the bottom in solar jobs per capita. So West Virginia is 45th for solar jobs per capita, and then Kentucky is 41st in solar jobs per capita. So that means when the coal industry dies, because they haven't been setting up for renewable energies, they have nowhere to go. There was one company, John Oliver pointed out, that did a lot of programming. So they taught a lot of ex-coal miners, you know, CSS and PHP and C++ and Java script. So they taught them a bunch of codes. They taught them about how to write code in computers. So that's amazing. That's really good. Also, Obama had put a lot of money into the dying coal industry. He put millions of dollars in his clean power plan. He put $1 million to re-educate the coal miners, to reclaim the abandoned lands, to do a lot of things. So they're cutting that. That's austerity, and this is Donald Trump. Austerity is violence. I remember when Conan O'Brien was talking about Donald Trump, and then the audience started booing, and then Conan was like, "Oh, you stop that now." Conan is an asshole, man. Conan is an asshole. It was, you know, fun to watch him give it to his boss on NBC when they fired him from the Tonight Show, but I do not enjoy watching Conan O'Brien anymore. I'll check him out here and there, but he's just he's an asshole. So his audience were like, "Boo! No, hey, you respect our warmonger. Our warmonger is important." And then he was talking about how he watches Fox News. I try to stay fair and balanced. I watch the corporate media, and then I watch some other corporate media, and that's fair and balanced. I get all the corporate opinion. So, yeah. Fuck you, Conan O'Brien. Trump's austerity budget would slash assistance for a number of economic development programs targeted at Appalachia. So the austerity programs that are there to save the coal miners' jobs, Trump is destroying. Trump only identifies with the coal company CEOs, the plutocrats. He thinks that wages are too high. He said on the campaign trail that he wanted wages to go down. In fact, I think the American people get paid too much. They're a bunch of spoiled, coddled people. Wages should go down. So that means he's against the poor people and working class. And then recently he said that in his economic cabinet, there was no poor people. He don't want no fucking poor people in his economic cabinet, right? Because the true winners are people like Bob Murray, who gets 9 people killed and then pretends he didn't do anything wrong and acts like he's the victim. I'm the victim. You know, yeah, 9 people died in my mountain, but it's not my fault. Quit picking on me. Admit that 9 people died under your watch, pay the families, and, you know, say that you'll never do it again. You'll make sure that the safety regulations will always be in place. But he doesn't do that. He's not honest. He's not being forthright. He's not taking responsibility for, you know, the death of his workers. And then Trump very much identifies with coal company CEOs. They give themselves bonuses, and then they jettison pension and health benefits owed to retired miners. So miners retire. Do they get their pension? Do they get their benefits? Nope. But they make sure they give themselves a nice golden parachute. That's the side that Trump is on. He's on the side of the 1%. He's on the side of the plutocrats. His talk and act like he cares about working class and middle class and poor America. He don't give a fuck about poor and homeless. The poor and homeless classes have no fucking chance under Trump whatsoever. Now, the working classes and the middle classes, I think he may somewhat care about middle class America because they're the ones who voted for him. But working class America, he's not going to get union protections. He's not going to pass the Employee Free Choice Act. He just doesn't give a shit. He doesn't give a shit about the most vulnerable amongst us. All right, so now, last thing. Oh, yeah, geriatrics is a specialty that focuses on the health care of elderly people. It aims to promote health by preventing and treating diseases and disabilities in older adults. So a geriatric physician who specializes in the care of elderly people, that's what geriatrics is. Geriatric, so when he called him a geriatric Dr. Evil, then he is essentially saying he was just an old person that needs, you know, health, help with his health. And he does. He's on a dialysis. He's on a breathing machine. They said that they needed to replace one of his lungs. So he's 77 years old. The average lifespan is 76 years old. And then a lot of that shit started coming out at Roger Ailes, and then Roger Ailes died. So he might be looking at you know, what happened to Roger Ailes is what's going to happen to him. So here's some interesting numbers here. This is from earthmagazine.org. It said that from 1978 to August 2007, so for 30 years, there were 17,000 size shaking of the earth. What seismology, what do they call that? It's a seismologist. So the seismicity, the ground shaking, happened in Utah a lot for 30 years up until the Crandall Canyon mine collapse. So for 30 years, there have been 17,000 earthquakes that registered as earthquakes. But the majority of those that was reported, let's say 99%, 98%. 98% of those 17,000 of those earthquakes were attributed to mining activities, and they were not natural seismic activity. So just by the odds, 98% of all these earth-shaking, you know, events were from coal mining. And you're like, well, how does that work? Well, I don't know 100% of it. You need a seismologist, right? So essentially, it looks like to me you have a bunch of scientists who are sitting there saying that it was caused by the coal mine collapse. The coal mine collapse caused the earthquake. So we have a bunch of scientists on one hand, and then a plutocrat who just wants to make a shit ton of money, a corporatist, right? Who's just trying to squeeze every fucking penny he can on the other side. So who are you going to believe? A fucking lying businessman that doesn't give a shit about anybody except for his own profits? Or a bunch of scientists? A bunch of scientists who have registered 98% of the earthquakes in Utah as coming from coal mining activities. So how does that happen? There's earthquakes happen when there's two tectonic plates that shift together. And so when they shift and they're rubbing against each other, then that causes everything to shake. Another way an earthquake can happen, an earthquake is just whenever the earth shakes, right? Is whenever you have a big pocket underneath the ground and it just collapses. So there's water reservoirs. There's big water reservoirs. If they try to hold a reservoir in an area where there hasn't been any, the water can go down in the ground and then eventually it finds that pocket and then you have a collapse deep down in the earth. But that collapse of dirt into the spaces shakes everybody else. Everybody else gets shaken up. When the whole mountain collapses, that would shake everything too, right? The thing of it falling down would shake everybody. So I would like to, I believe the scientist on this. It would be interesting to look into Bob Murray's work. He's still saying that he's a victim and it was all bullshit, but at the very least he said he didn't know. He didn't know for sure. So now he's wondering if the earthquake caused the mine collapse or if the mine collapse caused the earthquake. And then he said that it was 1 mile away from the epicenter. So if an earthquake happens a mile away, do you not feel it? And if it happened a mile away, it's saying that it was a natural occurring thing instead of it being caused. Because if it was caused there at the mountain, why would it set something off over there? Perhaps it slammed down and then, I don't know. So he's basically poking a lot of holes in these theories, but most of the bumps are small. They're below a magnitude of 3. This is a 3.9 magnitude. But several larger earthquakes have been associated with mine collapse in central Utah. There's 2 magnitude 3.8 events in May 1981 and February 1998, and a magnitude 4.2 earthquake in March 2000. So they've had these big-ass earthquakes that have happened, and they have, it's not a naturally causing thing. It is being caused by the mining activities. Larger seismic events have been generated by mine collapses elsewhere, including a magnitude 5.2 shock from the 1995 collapse of a 1x2 kilometer section of Trana Mine in southwestern Wyoming. And then a 5.6 event magnitude produced by the collapse of a 6 square mile kilometer section of a German potash mine in 1989. So there have been a lot of coal mining activities, water reservoir activities that induces seismicity. So the seismic activity, the seismicity. So there was a couple of earthquakes near Johannesburg, South Africa, that was attributed to the gold production in the nearby Witwatersrand fields. And then It's got a whole bunch of them here. 1908 was the first observatory for monitoring MIS established in Germany's Ruhr coal basin, and it was the first seismic network that was installed in Poland. Okay, so anyways, a whole bunch of them. There's petroleum production, there's reservoir impoundment, and an injection wells. So we have seen human-induced seismicity, including earthquakes associated with petroleum production, reservoir impoundment, injection wells. So it's not just coal mining, right? There's oil mining, then there's reservoir impoundment, and then there's injection wells. So I think that when you're shooting, when it comes to fracking, they shoot all those chemicals down into the ground, and then those have been inducing earthquakes, which absolutely they would be. You're shooting all that water, you're shooting all that, and the whole point is to get the natural gas to float up, and then you capture all that natural gas, but you're sitting there, shaking all these elements underneath the ground up. It's going to poison the groundwater, but it's also going to, move all that dirt. You're going to have that internal collapse of dirt, and then that's going to cause an earthquake. So that's while all that's true, humans can create earthquakes, and it doesn't have to be direct, right? There also can be earthquakes that cause mine collapses. In Bosnia in 2014, just 3 years ago, 5 people were killed. 5 miners were killed because of a rock burst in one of the coal mines because of a 3.5 Richter earthquake. So it's not impossible to think that an earthquake would cause a mine collapse. In fact, that would seem to be the obvious, answer. But the Earth is much more complicated than what I had suspected it being. And so I believe the scientists. I trust the scientists over this. So I don't know. You can't really protect yourself from an earthquake, right? If you had like a steel brick building and an earthquake happens and it collapses the whole building, well, what can you do about that? You can't really do shit about that. So no amount of safety regulations would ever save anybody from an earthquake unless there's like earthquake-proof houses. So my point is, if an earthquake happens, there's no way to protect yourself from that. So then it would be an unfortunate accident then. And you would still apologize because the families are dead. Sorry. He went to the families and they got all pissed off and they were yelling at him and shit. So he wasn't being very sympathetic to their families. And let's give Bob Murray the 100% benefit of the doubt. It was an earthquake. It caused the mine collapse, which 98% of the science says that it wasn't. There's been lots of other previous examples of human-induced earthquakes. But if we give him the benefit of the doubt, it's a total accident, all these people died under his watch because of this earthquake, he should still apologize. He should still be like, I feel really bad about this. It's unfortunately the American legal system. If you apologize, then that's an admission of guilt. There's ways to apologize without saying, like, I'm sorry, but I'm not guilty. So you could do something like that, but even that, there's just a sense of lack of genuineness. An accident happened and I'm really sorry. An accident happened and I'm really sorry. The way that Boone County handled they killed Samantha Ramsey in Boone County. But if you talk to them, they're like, yeah, it's really sad. They're going through a really hard time. But the police officers who murdered, they're going through a hard time too. And they're professionals and they need a job and they got kids and we need to care about their kids, but not your damn kids. So they were like sympathetic with the victims, but they still didn't give a shit about the overall verdict of what should happen. So that was a better presentation. At least they acknowledged the feelings that the families and the victims were going through. All the presidents do it too. He was an honorable man. He was an honorable military, but he's dead now, right? He's dead now, so that's why you're talking good about him. And they say, well, it's so hard. Bush made a book. He drew a book of all the injured veterans. So he ordered the war, but now he cares about the veterans that have been injured. So, yeah. I don't like his demeanor. I didn't like his demeanor with the entire 2007 mine collapse, the Crandall Canyon mine collapse in Utah. I didn't give a shit about that. I don't give a shit about his demeanor. He called Obama evil, right? This evil mountain and then evil Obama. So an evil mountain kills the miners, but evil Obama, is he a killer too? So he's a job killer, right? He's trying to phase coal out, but coal's dirty and we should be on solar panels. So that's actually very forward thinking. I don't think you should kill coal jobs. I think you should work on the transition to replace coal with something else. So So he's a piece of shit, right? He doesn't give a shit about the workers. He's laying off the workers left and right. He also was in favor of the Dakota and Keystone Pipeline. He's in favor of the Dakota and the Keystone Pipeline. He bitches about, people can be destroyed with words. They can, okay? Well, you're in favor of the Dakota and Keystone Pipelines. You are loved by a climate-denying president. So this plutocrat, who doesn't believe that climate change is even real, and this other asshole who's like, yeah, lay the pipes. It doesn't matter what environmental disasters we create. The Dakota and Keystone pipelines are now a go, right? They're going to go ahead and build these damn pipelines that we've been fighting against for fucking years. And so his politics are wrong. He comes out, he snorts his fucking opinion, and he's wrong. So, if he doesn't put his face out there like that, and again, he's a liar. So when that cease and desist thing had happened, immediately they asked a couple questions and they got so paranoid they send a cease and desist letter to try to intimidate John Oliver into shutting up. So I don't like him. I personally, the way, how I was talking about how he has a visceral hatred for Obama just from his bones. That's the same kind of hatred that I have for Bob Murray. So fuck Bob Murray. Fuck his frivolous lawsuit. Fuck him trying to bully people just because there was a piece. You think that there's more or better information that's put out there? Then go ahead and put it in a comedy show and then do your own, give your own perspective. But crying about another person, complaining about you or criticizing you, he was very effective at it. And, he did make fun of you. He's allowed to make fun of you. And then the questions of fact, all the things that he said, he referenced all his sources. So he was 100% with everything that he even said. He even said that he didn't think that he talked to a squirrel. He said it twice. I don't think Bob Murray talked to a squirrel. Or maybe he did, but he insulted and had Nutter Butters and did that big demonstration. So, I'm on Team John Oliver. This is a fucking fascist, totalitarian, corporatist, plutocrat, one percenter. He's got 3,300 sycophants, so he thinks he's untouchable. But that's the problem. Nobody could tell him that the fucking mines were collapsing, the mines were weak, and then wind up killing 9 of his miners, but he didn't want to hear it from the miners. He just wanted to, do as the fuck as I say and go to work. I don't want to listen to you. That's why I like unions. Because unions, they hold their dignity and they're, willing to criticize the massa. So they have dignity still. But he doesn't want any workers with dignity. Lose all your dignity and just do as the fuck as I tell you. You're my bitch. You're my slave. I give you $11 an hour. So you fucking go in those coal mines and you, possibly die. And then I'll have to pay. They signed non-disclosure agreements. So we don't know how much money the family got. But they did get paid off. But they signed a non-disclosure agreement, so they can't say how much they got. So this is just, he's covering it up, and he's fucking dirty, he's deceptive. He doesn't take any responsibility for this shit, so fuck Bob Murray. Fuck Bob Murray.